We live in a generation of men who could bench press 250, but they can't carry the weight of leading a family, and that's not okay. As men, we're put here with a duty and obligation to protect and provide. Even if you don't have a family yet, you still got to become that person who can handle it when your time comes. But also understand, too, as a believer in Christ and Son of God, you're born with a bullseye on your back because the enemy don't want you to be a man of God. He wants you to just be an adult boy. And if you don't learn how to fight against that, he's going to strip you of your marriage, your kids, your future. And if you don't have that yet, you risk never having it. But don't start thinking this video is only for men, because it's also for women out there. Ladies need to listen up. You need to take notes, because what I'm talking about is the kind of man you need to have in your life. And if you have a scrub now, it's time to wake him up or get to stepping. You need to move on. But first, let's look at 1 Corinthians 16-13, where the Bible tells us as men to watch, stand fast in faith, be brave, and be strong. That's not a suggestion, guys. That is a direct command. That's 4 orders from God to every man listening to this message. Even if you're a single mother out there and the sperm donor of your kids is not around, those commands are for you as well. And today we're going to expose the enemy's playbook that's against you. We're going to reveal exactly why there's that bullseye on your back. And I'm going to show you exactly how to stand firm when everything in this culture wants you to sit down. Because if there's one thing you need to know to stop being comfortable. Because comfort is killing more men than combat ever could. But let's talk about the reality of our position by illustrating a picture from Ezekiel 22, 29, and 30. Right? God is here. He's looking at his people. He sees oppression. He sees robbery. He sees mistreatment of poor and needy. And then he says something that should make every man listening to this and every woman listening to this examine their life. He said, "So I sought for a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the gap before me on behalf of the land, that I should not destroy it. But I found no one." God was looking for men who were standing in that gap. He's not looking for little adult boys playing video games until 3 a.m., not doing anything in their life, smoking weed and drinking 40s. He's not looking for guys that have kids and abandon their responsibilities. He's looking for men. Men who are going to build that wall of protection around their family. Men who are going to stand between destruction in their household. But here's the truth. He found no one. And how many families today echo those same exact words? How many wives are looking for their husbands to stand up spiritually, but they find no one? How many children out there are looking for their fathers to lead, and they have no one? I will never forget when I was 15 and my now wife was pregnant with our daughter. Right? We went to go break the news to my mom. And I thought she was going to be extremely mad. I thought she was going to be heated. I thought she was going to cuss me out. And she looked at me with a straight face. She said, "Well, you made your bed. Now you have to lay in it." And this is exactly what most people do. And men particularly fail to do it. Accept responsibility of their own actions. I know some of you don't know me like that, and you're probably thinking, 15 having a baby? Yes. By 16, we had 2 kids together. Although I can't blame anyone for my own actions, it was because of 2 things. Lack of guidance, and God using the circumstances to shift the trajectory of my life. That's it. It was a blessing in disguise, as most people would say. But I tell you that because, men, you need to understand. We are created for moments like this. In Genesis 1:27-28, God created man in his own image. He gave him dominion. He commanded him to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth, and to subdue it. That means you were designed to lead, protect, provide, and to cultivate. But here's the problem with today's culture. It calls that toxic or anti-feminist. And the truth, it's not toxic. It's biblical masculinity. In the same way that God gave us his orders in Genesis 1 is the same way that the enemy uses with a 5-point attack plan to derail us from carrying out those orders. It's no secret that Satan has a specific playbook he runs against men. He's been using it since the garden. But there are 5 primary weapons he uses to take us out of our assignment. The first one is pride. Pride tells us that you don't need help. You don't need accountability. You don't need God. It whispers you got this on your own. Pride makes you unteachable, unreachable, and ultimately unusable for the kingdom. It's the same weapon that took down Lucifer himself, and he knows exactly how to use it against you. Pride is going to keep you from admitting when you're wrong. It's going to keep you from seeking counsel, and it keeps you from bowing your knees in worship. A proud man cannot lead because he cannot follow God. The second way is through anxiety. Anxiety is going to paralyze you with what ifs, worst case scenarios. It makes you second guess every decision, every move, and every stand you need to take. The enemy loves an anxious man. Because an anxious man won't step out in faith. He won't take risks for the kingdom. He won't lead his family into new territory. In Joshua 1:9, it commands us, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." The anxiety is believing that lie that God ain't going to show up. And the third thing he uses against us is laziness. This is a silent killer of masculine purpose. Laziness isn't just physical, it's also spiritual, emotional, and mental. It's the man who won't engage in spiritual warfare for his family. It's the husband who won't pursue his wife's heart. It's the father who's present in the body but absent in leadership. See, Proverbs warns us repeatedly about the sluggard laziness that creates a vacuum of leadership where something else is going to end up filling it. And usually, it's a governmental system, a school system, a cultural influence, or simply just some chaos. And the fourth one that he uses against us is isolation. We're not designed to fight alone. Look at 2 Samuel 10:11, where Joab tells his brother Abishai, "If the Syrians are too strong for me, then you shall help me. But if the people of Ammon are too strong for you, then I will help you." Even warriors need backup. But the enemy wants you to be isolated, disconnected, fighting battles in secret. He knows that isolated men fall faster. There's no accountability, no encouragement, and no one to call you higher. And the fifth and final one is lust. This weapon has taken on more mighty men than all the armies of history combined. Look at David, for instance, right, when he was lusting over Bathsheba on the rooftop, right? But lust doesn't just mean sexual sin. It's also the craving for anything that pulls your devotion away from God and your family. It could be more money, more power, more recognition, and yes, it could be sexual things as well. But lust makes you a slave to your appetites instead of a master of your dominion. It trades your birthright for a bowl of soup and your assignment for a moment of pleasure. Now, these 5 weapons, pride, anxiety, laziness, isolation, and lust, they're not working in isolation. They are coordinated attacks. And you know where we see the fruit of this attack most clearly? In the collapse of biblical manhood and womanhood in our homes. When men fall to these attacks, when they stop leading, when they check out spiritually, emotionally, or physically, we see entire families crumble before our eyes. And what we're left with is an epidemic that's destroying our society from the inside out. One of the biggest issues we have in families is fatherlessness. Our world is drowning from the problem. We wonder why young people are so buck wild and why the youth is so disrespectful. It's because of the lack of guidance from the absence of fathers, and on occasion the absence of both parents. When fathers abandon their family, or when women remove the man out of the lives of the children, we have a void that the government will step in to fill. And the thing is that the government was never meant to be head of household. The head of household should be a father. Not 2 fathers, not 2 mothers, but the balance of 1 man and 1 woman. That is what makes a home a home. But don't think just because you have kids and you live in the house, that makes you a mother or father. Because let's be honest, we have a generation of men who have kids but are not fathers. You donated sperm, congratulations. You laid up with a girl, you mix some DNA together, that does not make you a father. Being a father means you lead, you provide, you protect, and you're present. Some of you are more invested in fantasy football or the games on or I'm going to go out with the boys and all these things than your actual family team. And ladies, I'm not letting you off the hook either. We have women who birth babies but are not mothers, posting pictures on Instagram for likes while your children are raised by screens and strangers. You're more concerned about your career, your social life, or your me time than the souls that God entrusted you with. Motherhood is not a biological function. It's a sacred calling. And having children doesn't make you a parent any more than standing in the garage makes you a car. Raising them does. Investing in them does. Sacrificing for them does. And fighting for their souls does. And if we look at 1 Timothy 5:8, we find a scary verse in the Bible where Paul writes, "If anyone does not provide for his own, especially those of his household, he denies the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." Let that sink in. Worse than an unbeliever. He's not saying you get a pass by saying, "Don't I pay the bills," or "Don't I buy the food," or "Don't I buy the car." No. What he's saying is that we have to provide spiritually, emotionally. We have to lead from the front. Children learn based on what you do, not what you say. I'm sure you probably heard the phrase, "more is caught than taught." And that is one of the most profound statements ever made. Your children are going to be a direct reflection of who you are. And when you abandon your role as a spiritual leader of your house, you're not just failing, you're denying the very faith that you claim to possess. And here's what upsets me the most, is many fathers are physically present and provide life necessities, but are spiritually AWOL. They're in the house, but they're not in position. They outsource spiritual development in their children to a Sunday school teacher or a youth pastor, and that is your duty as a parent. Nobody can do your job for you. Nobody. And your children need to see you opening the word. They need to see you on your knees in prayer. They need to see you leading when worship in your home. They need to see you standing against the culture when it contradicts what God says. If we fail and we don't fight against the woke society of the world, we feed into the abominations of the earth, we risk our children being indoctrinated by the wicked. The Bible says in Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he would not depart from it. I'm not saying that you're going to be a perfect father, a perfect mother, a perfect parent. What I'm saying is that you should be what you need to be, meaning that you need to do the things you need to do. You need to sow the seeds and let the word of God water it. But even if you do all of that, even if you stand up and take your position, even if you become the spiritual leader God called you to be, you need to understand something critical about your position. That there's that bullseye on your back, right? As a Christian husband and father, understand that that's going to be there. The enemy hates you specifically because you represent God's order. You're God's design, and you're God's authority in that home. You are a threat to everything that Satan is trying to build in this world. Every time you pray over your children, every time you do that, you dismantle his plans. Every time you love your wife like Christ loved the church, you're preaching a sermon that terrifies all of hell. Every time you stand up and lead with a biblical conviction, you're pushing back darkness. Me doing this right now is shaking the gates of hell because they don't want this message to go out. They're going to make sure that it gets the least amount of views possible. But guess what? God's people are going to find it. Whether it's now, 10 years from now, 2 years from now, 2 months from now, people that need to hear it are going to hear it. They're going to see it. They're going to click on it. They're going to watch it. And it's going to touch their heart. And Apostle Paul tells us in Ephesians 6:12, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. And the enemy's goal is to divide the household. That wickedness in heavenly places is going to come down and to divide your household. And this is why in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7, it tells us to dwell with our wives with understanding, giving honor to them as weaker vessels. This isn't about us, being more superior than them or, being having dominion over them. It's just about responsibility. Understanding that you're the covering, you're the protection of the relationship. And the enemy knows if he can take you out, the rest are going to become vulnerable. Once you knock down the first domino, what happens to the others? They fall. And maybe you come from a long line of men who don't step up or were taken out. And I don't speak on this from theory. I speak on this from experience. I'm biracial, black and white. My granddad on my mom's side, my white side, was racist and didn't want anything to do with me or my sister. I met him 3 times. First, my parents divorced. Second was at my cousin's house. And the third was at his funeral. My granddad on my dad's side, he was killed when my dad was 13 years old. And my parents got divorced and I was 12. My dad was MIA for 4 years straight. Then we reconnected months after, and he was gone again. The majority of my life, I lacked that father figure. But just like I said about the dominoes falling earlier, but this time, sometimes you need to be the one that doesn't fall, the one that stands to protect the rest on the line. Be the chain breaker, not the cursed passer. You may be wondering, how do I fight against the dark power? How do I fight against the thing that wants to have division in my family? How do you stand against these coordinated attacks when you have a target on your back? There is one weapon that is the most powerful of all, over prayer, but is overlooked by so many men because they think it's weak. But in reality, it's what brought giants to their knees. It's called worship. I'm talking about full yielding, tears on your face, on your knees, on the ground, worship. Greater is he who is in thee. Right? We find that in 1 John 4:4, it says, you are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. You want to defeat pride? Get on your face before God. I mean, literally. When was the last time you bowed down before the Lord? When was the last time you lifted your hands in surrender, not caring who saw you? Worship is a great equalizer. It reminds you of who God is and who you are. It's impossible to worship in spirit and truth and remain prideful. It's impossible to truly encounter the presence of God and stay anxious. Look at King David. This was a warrior's warrior, a man's man, right? His baby was dying. What did David do? He hit the floor. He wept before God. He fasted and he worshiped for 7 days straight, begging God for mercy. Then his child died. Did he get up all angry and hate God? No, he cleaned himself up and he went straight into the house of God to worship again. And his servants couldn't understand it, but David knew how to humble himself before the Lord. And later, when David danced before the Lord with all his might, his wife despised him for it. She thought it was an undignified, but guess what? Although she was disgusted, David understood something. In the presence of God, human dignity means nothing. Divine encounter means everything. And this keeps the powerful language you already had while adding the story of David's 7 days of weeping and worship, showing both his brokenness and his joy in worship, both equally masculine expressions of devotion to God. And as men of the house, your family need to see your worship. They need to see that there is something and someone bigger than you are and that you bow down to it. It models humility and demonstrates priority and creates a culture of honor in your home. Now, even when you're fighting the good fight, even when you're using worship as a weapon, even when you're standing your position, there's another trap the enemy is going to set up. And it's so subtle that most men don't even realize they're walking into it until they are completely demoralized. And this is called the comparison trap. And this is usually a modern side effect of today's technology. This is the comparison trap is what is killing men's effectiveness. The constant comparison to others. Social media has turned life into a highlight reel competition. And men are falling into depression at record rates because they're measuring their behind the scenes against everyone else's highlight reels. Constant self-reflection by comparing yourself to others is not self-improvement. It's self-destruction. Comparison and depression are essentially the same spirit. And if you live there, you're going to fail as a spouse and a parent. God did not call you to be anybody else. He did not call you to be another man. He called you to be you, to walk in your assignment with your family and your generation. Your wife doesn't need you to be like her friends' husbands or your cousin or whoever. Your children don't need you to be like their friend's dad. They need you, fully present, fully engaged, and fully submitted to God's design for your life. Right? In 1 Corinthians 13:1, it reminds us that without love, we're just making noise. Paul says, though I speak to you with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. In other words, you can have all the spiritual gifts, all the success, and the appearance of having it all together, but if you're not operating in love, starting with your own family, you've missed it entirely. Now, if you're still here with me this long, I want to first congratulate you for taking this seriously, but also thank you for tuning in, because we just exposed the enemy's tactics, identified the crisis, and I've given you some artillery to fight back. But knowledge without action is just information. It's time to move forward from hearing to doing. Don't be hearers of the word, but be doers of the word. For if you hear yourself only, you're just deceiving yourself, right? It's time to rise up, to take your place. It's time to stop letting culture, comfort, and cowardice dictate your decisions. And if you are married, your wife is waiting for you to lead. If you're single, there's a beautiful soul out there waiting for you, but you need to be the man that she needs. And women don't need us to dominate, they need us to lead. And there's a big difference. Biblical leadership serves, protects, provides, and sacrifices. It doesn't demand a sandwich. It demonstrates what love and gratitude is. Children are waiting for you to show up. They want their parents. They want love. They need them to have a godly man and to show them what the example is, what it looks like. They're constantly being surrounded by counterfeits. They're confused by the culture and the outside world. They need to be protected. Now, will you be with a protector and the example they need, or are you going to join that dark side and contribute to the enemy's plan? And if you're saying, I will do that, and you're not going to be on the dark side, then I'll leave you with 5 steps to stay on track, and I'm going to close this message out. First Establish time daily with God. Make it non-negotiable. Second, gather other men around you. Get a group or create a group and keep each other accountable. Make sure you keep your brothers in check. And third, be that spiritual leader in your home. Start leading your family in prayer and study scripture with them. The fourth, identify which one or which ones of the 5 attacks the enemy has been using against you. If it's pride, make that time for fasting and prayer. If it's lust, find an accountability partner. Make sure that you aren't being consumed by the lust of the flesh. And remember, it isn't just about sexual manner. This could be money, power, recognition, etc. If it's isolation, join a men's group immediately. This is one that I personally have been doing. Every Tuesday, I wake up at 4:45 in the morning, and I go to a Bible study in my church here in Jacksonville at 11:22. If you're in Jacksonville, come to it. It's at 6 a.m. I wake up so early because I have to drive from down to St. John's all the way up there, so it takes me about an hour. Now, if it's anxiety, memorize scriptures about God's faithfulness. And if it's laziness, create habits that force engagement. And the fifth thing, serve your wife sacrificially. Ask her how you can help her. Support her, love her better, date her again. Pursue her heart. Show your children what it looks like for a man to cherish his bride. If my wife is watching this right now, I want you to know how much I love you and you mean the world to me. But I want to close this out for everybody else because you are not an accident. You were born with such a perfect time for this. God placed you in this generation for a reason with your specific family. He gave me my 2 kids so young. And guess what? Now we have 5, right? Face your challenges because he believes you can handle them with strength. And the enemy doesn't want you to believe that you are enough. He wants you to believe that you're not enough, that you're too damaged, you failed too many times. But God says you're his son, and you're equipped, and you're called, and you're empowered by his Spirit. Your past does not disqualify you. Your struggles do not define you. And your failures do not have to be final. But you have to choose. You have to decide. Will you be a statistic or a standard bearer? Will you be passive or powerful? Will you check out or stand up? The world is desperate for men who will stand in the gap. Your family is desperate for you to take your position. Heaven is waiting for you to rise up and be who God created you to be. The time for excuses is over. The time for positivity is now. The time for action is now. So watch, stand fast in faith, be brave, be strong. With everything you do, do it in love. And remember, greater is he who is in thee, than he who is in the world. And as always, thank you for watching this video. Stay blessed by the best. Please like, comment, subscribe, and join our free Facebook group in the bio or in the link description below. And I'll see you guys next week.